Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this webinar. So, my name is Ralph. I am a technical support at Matomo, and we're talking about tracking code troubleshooting. Uh, First things to first, let's just what is the target audience? Um, this troubleshooting is not restricted to technical professionals with a specialized knowledge. Okay, so this webinar is not for just a specific technical people, but just for all types of professionals. And so they'll be scared about some things we'll cover. They should be quite straightforward, and they actually more like basic troubleshooting. Okay, so thank you for joining us, and nice to see Stefan in the crowd as well. So thank you very much. Um, the objectives of the webinar, as mentioned, is to learn the basic steps of how to find issues. That covers technical and configuration aspects of the troubleshooting, and we will only cover the basics of it. Because due to time constraints, it won't be possible to show all the troubleshooting scenarios, and we'll show mostly the most common issues, and the complex ones. Obviously, it's very difficult to cover anyway, and would need to be covered in a specific different webinar. In terms of the troubleshooting, Matomo has got two different types of tracking code. The first one is the JavaScript one, which is, I guess, it will be more used than the other one, which is the Matomo Tag Manager. From memory, I guess the majority of the troubleshooting I've been doing is with the JavaScript one, and which involves technical troubleshooting, just understand a little bit of the browser developer tools, for instance, needs to be used and things like that. The Matomo Tag Manager troubleshooting is more related to configuration troubleshooting. It's not just limited, but majority of times it will be just in terms of configuration, and which entails like checking tags, triggers, variables, things like that. And it's I would say less likely to have a technical issue with a Matomo Tag Manager. Moving on. So we'll cover the common issues, and for JavaScript, what we see a lot are double tracking, the tracking codes, editing mistakes. So we do have customers that actually somehow edit the tracking codes, and we end up just having some tracking issues. Um, Mixing on-premise and cloud tracking codes. Um, we do migrate from on-premise to cloud and vice versa, and we see that sometimes the old track code is left in the website instead of removed, and for instance, this example of the on-premise to cloud. Um, uh, the web analytics people add the cloud tracking codes on top of the on-premise, which that means that you end up just having two tracking codes being fired up at the same time. And sometimes we see wrong tracking code methods being used as well. So we'll cover that later on, what that means. And there are some issues that can arise from that. As I said before, a Matomo Tag Manager normally would have a wrong configuration. And in regards to the content management platforms, what we usually see is the tracking codes being loaded before the actual consent is given. So this is a common issue we have seen over and over again. So it's obviously Matomo doesn't have its own content management platform. So we have just to troubleshoot CMPs for our customers, or that's what we see very regularly. So we're not actually going to cover the details of or troubleshooting the CMPs, but so that's what we see very regularly is that the tracking code is fired before the actual do you accept cookies or tracking banner. So that's what actually happens normally. As an example of double tracking, so this is obviously redacted because it's from a real customer, and the blue arrow shows the double tracking. So you see there are two page views for every visitor, right? So that means that the tracking code is actually running twice and producing two page views basically. And this is the common type of the issue we see in terms of double tracking. But there are other issues, for instance, that some pages have double tracking and other pages don't. So that it can be a little bit more confusing. We have to just check the specific pages and see what is happening with each one, and what is the difference between the one with one page view and the ones with the two page views. So it can be complex at times. So let's just pass on, moving to actually how to actually troubleshoot those scenarios. Uh, what we actually suggest for customers actually to use the browser developer tools, because it does actually provide a lot of information regarding the actual errors, and it's the place to go for actual troubleshooting, at least for the initial troubleshooting anyway. So the first step is the console, just to check the browser console. We'll show that the console later, but it just for now, just going briefly what that entails. So this is actually a real container of a customer, and they have um, uh, misconfigured the container, and you see here there is a message in an invalid regular expression. So they have done something wrong with actually the type configuration, and the console actually returned an error. This is actually a little bit of a funny one, because I said before that normally we see error messages with JavaScript, but you can also see that with a tag manager containers. Okay, but it's a little bit more rare than the actual JavaScript one, because the JavaScript there are more error messages with JavaScript that we actually troubleshoot basically. Okay, so how do we actually access a inspect a website? So to access the console, we just right click on the page and then click on select inspect. Most browsers would have that, and some of them you would actually have to enable it, so it's not a default value. I think for Chrome it's already a default one. That's what we will be using here for our troubleshooting. Moving on, so the console, when you check the console, so it's a tab within the development tools. You see the error messages have some meaning basically. So it actually, in this case, it's a 400 uh, um, status that it has been returned. So we know the error code is X400. It's bad request. Something is wrong. In this case, I've done something on purpose just to force an error, right? So the JavaScript error that has got some meaning. So we go through that and we'll explain what this long code actually means. So first first thing we need to look at is actually the error code. So if you go to the developer mozilla.org, there is a list of all the error codes. If you're not familiar with them, the list is quite long, but the majority of times will be 40 something, not 400, not four more than 410 or something like that. So it will be 404, 400, 402, something like that. So there are not very many error codes that you would actually just see anyway. So you see then the actual font is red and is in bold as well. So which means that the console is showing that there is a problem with specifically this one, right? So just moving on. So if you click on this bit, which is called a resource in Chrome, it opens up a dialog and it shows all of that thing, the very large API call. What that means actually is all the information that Matomo is sending to Matomo servers, and you can actually see the bad requests, the message as well. So moving on to the next one, which is the most important, I guess. Uh, the previous one was the header. We were in the header tab. Now the payload tab is selected, and you see that that is a lot easier to see compared to the previous one because it's very long string, very confusing. This one you can see a lot easier. So what I've done in this case, I forced an error, so I just changed the ID size to 10 instead of 1 in the tracking code, and actually just oops, and going back, and then it just returns an error. So the payload is the tab that we rely a lot to identify some errors basically. I'll go through that later. I will just show a browser and see, if just show or just basically all the issues that we could actually have in terms of checking all the parameters. Just moving on. So the third step that we have actually is go to the Elements tab and check. If you Control F to search, you can type Matomo and check what the where the Matomo and which Matomo tracking codes you can find in a page. What we recommend is actually Matomo to be placed in the head tag, which is high up in the page, because Matomo tracking code needs to be loading very early before anything else. So the reason for that is because Matomo needs to start analyzing what is actually going on with the page, and if this is actually loaded very late, it wouldn't want that actually have the time to actually analyze everything that's actually happening with the page. For instance, how long it takes to load, and etc. etc. Okay, so we will cover all of that later on. So I try to list the types of issues, the most common ones that we will see, that's in how to troubleshoot them. So you see, it's not actually that difficult to troubleshoot them. So just let's go for the first one. The double tracking. So obviously it's the most common, as I said before. And why does it happen? So the first thing is mistake. So some companies have developers or web developers, and then web analysts or all sorts of different professionals. They actually just read the implementation guide, and they actually add tracking code each one. So we have seen that before. Sometimes there is a big team, and two or maybe more tracking codes have been inserted by mistake, and then we have to troubleshoot. We realize there are quite a few added to the site. As I previously mentioned as well, so just left by mistake. So from on-premise to cloud, a website just had a tracking code for on-premise, and then just left it, didn't delete it, and then moved to migrated to cloud and added a new tracking code for cloud. So we ended up with the double tracking. Sometimes there are some of the problems with the Connect Matomo plugin. So the WordPress plugin loads the Matomo tracking code, and if there is already a tracking code added manually to the website, and we have seen that actually happening quite a few times. So this WordPress website would end up with two tracking codes. So I would like to show that if I could just now edit the. Okay, so I'm just want to show an example of what is a. Oops, I have to reload this. I want to show an example of two tracking codes being loaded at the same time. This is one of the most common ones. So if I go to network, so what happens here is I see two API calls. They are actually page views, and there is one Matomo tracking code. But if I go to the console, you see there is an error message, actually two error messages saying like, Matomo is saying like, you try to initialize again the same variable, and which means that the Matomo tracking code, well, the site was trying to load Matomo tracking code twice. And what it does is it fails the second time, but it still track a page view. So you normally see that. So in payload, you see the page is exactly, both pages are exactly the same. So, and what you end up seeing, I hope that I can log in. Oh, I need to log into this one. So I think that it has been picked out. But you see there are actually two, as I've explained before. So you see there are two pages views in at the same time, basically. So it's pretty much, and that's how it shows in the visit log. Okay, moving on. So that has been covered. So we obviously the solution for that is to remove the second tracking code, right? So another mistake that we've seen very very often, I would say, it's users end up just editing the tracking code for some reason. I'm not quite so sure if it's because they read something in the net or something, but the top one is the correct tracking code. So you see the test.matomo.cloud. So that is correct. And this one here, for instance, the URL is correct for this variable, but the CDN URL. Oops, going back. The CDN URL is actually incorrect. Funny enough, this is a valid endpoint, so Matomo tracking code loads still using this one, but some of the features of Matomo would actually not be enabled. And this one was a little bit difficult to troubleshoot. Actually, this is a real case, and so we ended up just finding out that it obviously, but it's not easy to see the difference between this and the other because the tracking code, both of them look like pretty much like similar anyway. So loading is one of the issues that we found. I wouldn't say very regularly, but we do actually find this sometimes. If the tracking code is not loading very quickly, there are some issues. The biggest issue related to that is if a visitor click on a link and the page is not fully loaded, and especially Matomo tracking code is not fully loaded, the Matomo will not track this particular page, and the user goes to another page, and so it would not be registered as a visit. I've seen at some websites that the problem is intermittent, which is even worse. So some pages the Matomo tracking code is loaded, some other pages, other times the Matomo is not loaded, and then it's very difficult to actually just understand why the numbers get really really messed up, basically, because some of the pages, for instance, not the home page, have more visits than the other pages. So we need to double check that with the actual network tab, and you will see the speed of the page and the tracking codes, how long it actually takes to load. So it's a funny one, this one, but it actually can happen. Obviously, standard technologies like WordPress, you would see a lot less issues, but there are all sorts of different types of technology are there. Some websites they're actually developed in different ways, so we have to troubleshoot all of that. The what I called elusive tracking issues it sometimes we see that the a specific method is used wrongly on a page or several pages, and so for this one, for instance, what it does is it sets the actual URL for the page. So Matomo reads as a default the actual URL, but that can be overridden. And in this case, imagine that if there are only a few pages with this, or even if it's a variable that is a variable is wrongly placed, we have to troubleshoot that. It can be difficult. The problem with this one specifically is it doesn't actually return any error. So there's no error in the console, there is no error in the network tab, and then we have to figure out what's going on in a different way. So how would we do that? Using the payloads, right? So would like to show you in a few seconds this page here. So what we do normally is we check in the payload what the API call is doing. So what is the URL, what's the ID site, etc., etc. So sometimes because we cannot see any errors in network tab or console, we need to actually just check the actual API call. And to do that, we normally refer to this, to the tracking HTTP API. It looks like a little bit complex, and it is in a sense, but you don't have to actually know by heart anything like that. It's just a reference, and majority of times you just need to know the, let's say, this bit, right? So it's not all the time. You see that, for instance, H is for hour, minute, second, etc. So we compare the values of the API call, so and see all the parameters and see what is actually wrong with it, and to find out what the issue is with that specific error that I've mentioned before, like this, adding something specifically that we cannot find any errors. Okay, so moving on, just I would like to talk about the types of issues that we see with the containers, or the Matomo tag containers. It may sound a bit funny, but it's important to select the correct container. Sometimes we do have customers with many different types of containers, production, tests, and etc. And it's difficult for them to find which one is the one they need to do, and etc. Especially if they're not very familiar with Matomo and they understand how it works, the intricacies, and etc. So we do actually have a bit of a challenge sometimes to find out which one is which. So it pays off to be organized. That is one of the biggest things we would say, to actually just have a log or something that's with all the tags, variables, and triggers, like even to the spreadsheet, just knowing which one does what, because it can get really complex with. We've seen some customers with literally hundreds of tags, and it can be quite daunting to manage all of that anyway. So as an example, this is my tag website. So I can see here it's on a preview that is actually working. That's disable preview. Okay, so and you see that the tag is working correctly, is loading correctly. There's no errors and etc. So this is one of the first points of checking. So see if the actual tag is loaded correctly or not. Customers not aware of the use of the network tab, and we recommend that to check that first thing, especially for customers that have like so many websites and could be agencies, something like that. So they actually do need to know which one to check for. Okay, going back. As I said, so it's always paid off to check the in-network tab the actual container, see that it's correctly loaded, etc. And there are the variables is something that we see that often there are some mistakes. So variables, for instance, contains the site ID and contains a lot of settings, if you like. The configuration of the variables is quite important. So you see that you can enable, can disable things, etc. So we recommend customers just to look at or which one is the settings that they want to enable, disable, because there are quite a bit of confusion at times which ones should be used. And at this point, I'll just go back to my testing environment and just show a few things. But I would like to just to create a trigger, a tag, and go for the debugging and talk a little bit about browser cache as well, because there are some issues related to that. So let's just go to my very empty test environment. So I've got okay, the variables I need to do. I can let's go first to the page. Let's edit the page. Okay, so I've added the Matomo camp ID into this page, which is pretty much this button here, track an event. And but in Matomo, I need to actually create them, create the triggers and the tags. So first thing to do, so I'll go to all elements click, and to be organized, I put like camp 1, and then equals to Matomo camp. So I know the click ID because the ID in the what was that? So yeah, the ID equals to Matomo camp. Let's go down here and just set the trigger, and then the page, the tag. I need to create a new tag. Again, be organized with the right name. In this case, I don't want a page view. I want this to create an event, and then just Matomo camp category, action, and test. So the name is test. So I'm going to create an event with those values, and the trigger is Matomo camp 1, which I just created, and there you go. So it has been created, but I have an option to publish now, but what we recommend first is just click on preview and debug, so which has been just enabled now. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this page, paste it here, which is the easiest thing to do, and there we go. So I've got the actual debug just working. If I move a little bit, there we go. You see that isn't even the all elements click has been fired. Well, clicked. I have clicked something, but I can click as many times as I want. But what I need to click is this track event. That has been fired correctly, so I know it's actually working perfectly. So then I actually can go and publish. So I can just go and finish publishing. I know that it's working now. Oops. Okay, that's interesting. I thought it would actually. There you go. Just copy, paste, test. And there we go. That has been published, and I know that for every person that goes to this site would actually have the track event working properly. When I click on the button, it would actually just work. The only problem with that is the cache that I have mentioned before. So most customers believe that when a tag has been published, every single user would have the tag just released and working on a website. If that wasn't for the browser cache, the problem is that so many visitors that have been visited previously the site have the page cached, and the page takes a while to actually refresh. I would like to ask our ChatGPT friend without this about the specific question. How long does the page remain cached in the browser? So as you see here, there are several factors. So it's not a simple cut, okay? And the answer here, especially, it says that for a few days and a few weeks, unless the website specific user clear that cache, basically. So in this scenario, that a page has been, sorry, a tag has been just published, it could be that some users, returning users, would have that refreshed. Some older users maybe they still have the page, the old page, and the new users that never visitors that never been before would actually just have the auxiliary page. So it can be quite complex because depending on the scenario, the new tag would actually not be 100% fired for all the visitors, and then can be confusing for our customers. So they don't understand why. And the perpetrator definitely is the browser cache. I'm just almost running out of time, so I just want to just going for the next. I would say the last bit of the troubleshooting that we do is actually Matomo cookies. More specifically, the PKID cookie. So what is that, and what does it do? So it's uses for calculating unique visitors, right? So Matomo knows when the user is returning, it would actually know because of this value here. So best thing to do here is actually just to go to the console again, and then in this case, I would go to the application tab and click on the first party cookies page. Just to make it easier to visualize, I'll just click on PK just to filter that. And this is the value I'm interested. So if I go here and then paste, you see there are two different types of numbers. This one has got 16 digits, and you see that this one would actually match in the visitor profile. You would see that this one matches exactly. So that means that my visit has been recorded with this visit ID, and if we go here to the expire, you see this cookie has 13-month expiry date. So that's the default for Matomo. And basically, every time this user goes visit the website, Matomo knows that it has been visited because of this cookie, and actually would determine that is a returning visitor, basically. We have seen before some issues with that, but normally it would be for a non-standard implementation, most likely with HTTP API tracking. What is that? It's just tracking manually, if you like, without using the Matomo tracking code in a sense. And then I've seen some customers actually using the HTTP API tracking, creating their own cookies, and even extending the lifespan of the cookie for let's say 30 months or something like that. And but they have to manage everything. So I've seen that in those cases, sometimes I see some of their visitors have, let's say, 2 or more different cookies, and it would just be impossible to determine a unique visitor. So we can troubleshoot that. It's a bit complex, but it was just pretty much like an overview of what the PKID cookie does, what look out for, because it's very important to know to match basically the visitor ID and this, so we can actually just troubleshoot and see actually everything is working correctly. So basically, just ending now the presentation. So 30 minutes is not really too long. That's for a thorough explanation of all the possible troubleshooting. But those are the most common anyways. So at least just look out for those type of things. And anyone has got any questions?
Okay, so thank you very much, Ralph. Yes, of course, there are plenty of questions. Your conference, as you can see, has been one of the most popular, as you can see from the room. In general, we tend to have 0% into the room, and as you can see, Work Adventure, we are at least in 6, including a pet. So that's definitely a good one. So do you maybe already have a question for the audience, Ralph?
Oh yes, actually, I would like to know: has anyone had any problems with the tracking codes that you didn't sort it out, or you had problems sorting out?
Okay. So for the audience, so any questions that you would like to Ralph to answer to in terms of troubleshooting, feel free to take the time within the YouTube chat or even to come on stage in order to explain us your current issue that you are facing. In the meantime, so there's at least two questions in the chat. So one is about will the webinars will be available later on? The answer is yes, they are already available. In fact, if you go on YouTube, you can already see them. We have another question, which is about the JavaScript console that you show us, Ralph, in the presentation.
Yeah.
We would like to know if you have to be a web developer in order to be able to use it. How do you personally started to educate yourself about this JavaScript console? If you are scared about it, who trained you? And are there sometimes some messages that you don't understand from the JavaScript console? I mean, everything which deal with this, let's say, debugging console that you show us from your browser. I think the audience would be interested in knowing more about it.
Sure, sure, sure. You don't have to be a developer, but I am a developer. So this is how I've obviously learned how to troubleshoot everything because I've developed in different languages. But I have seen in the net a lot of explanations of the console, how to use them, etc. Um, i- if if you if you have this mindset of just troubleshooting and not be scared of technical issues, it's quite actually simple because the error messages explain. Normally, the error messages are very self-explanatory, so you will be able to see what the actual code is, what the error message says, and uh, how can I see if I can just um, could actually try to emulate an error message here and see what it says. Um, Maybe this one. Yeah. Well, this is for instance it's not very self-explanatory, but you see that there is an error. There is an error here that you're not quite sure. Uh, the pack variable, it's something that Matomo uses. So if we go to elements and search for that, I'm searching at the bottom here. You can see I'm just searching for pack, and then there are quite a few packs here. Let me see. Let me see. So, and there we go. I've searched for a pack, and I can see here there are two Matsumo tracking codes, and I would say that's something that anyone should erase the browser and thinking, oh, hang on a second, have I done anything wrong here? Because I see that I pasted two tracking codes. We had before some customers calling us and saying, well, I know that I've got two tracking codes. Is this a problem or not? So the customer already troubleshooted for us in a sense, and the answer is pretty much like, yeah, there is a problem, and so you need to double check that. The console, I I don't at the top of my head now. I'm not sure what to how can emulate an error just to create like an easily thing to troubleshoot. But normally the tracking errors they actually are self-explanatory really, so you can actually understand what the problem is, and I would say have a go try to troubleshoot that because it's not that difficult. But if you do have any problems, just contact support and we'll be happy to help
Thank you, Ralph. So there are many questions in the chat. Honestly, I don't even know if I will be able to ask you all those questions within the next 20 minutes, but let's go for it. So we have a question from the Nora. That's the nickname, I guess. What is the technological level of users asking for Matomo support?
We do have all sorts of we do have the experts and we do have the newbies. So it's and anything in between. So I remembered recently we had a few customers that they actually were pretty much uh, no knowledge of Matomo whatsoever, and we had to educate as well. So it's not it's not just the fact that we is there is the technical side of it. There is the educational side of it as well. So it's all sorts of levels, definitely.
Okay, so all sorts of level. How long did it take you to fix your first bug? Let's say I don't know if you remember the first ticket you received at Matomo support. How long did it take you to fix it?
Ages. I don't remember for ages because when you're learning Matomo, to learn Matomo thoroughly takes some time. But the basics, it's quite easy. But to troubleshoot is a different story because you need to understand a little bit how Matomo works, right? So I was stuck a little bit, and I'm not sure if half an hour, or for how long it was. But yes, once you know the how Matomo works, I think they would give you a leverage, definitely.
Okay. The next question is, what is your current position at Matomo? What are you doing at Matomo? What is your what does your daily business look like?
Yeah, I'm a technical support specialist basically. So I'm just troubleshooting websites and etc. Not just that, but yeah. So I troubleshoot websites, and some websites are very difficult to troubleshoot because they do have uh, let's say sort of hybrid technologies and all sort of different settings that and those. So it's not always possible to actually troubleshoot itself. As I explained earlier, sometimes we don't see error messages, nothing, and sometimes you see like just only numbers that actually don't match, and we have to go and find out why. So that can be quite difficult. But yeah, so basically, my position is a technical guy. I'm a half nerd, I would say, and yes, I'm here to help everyone just to troubleshoot their website.
Okay. So next question is about so from Hartmut class. Is there a way similar to the GTM preview mode to save the Matomo debug view across multiple page views?
No, it's not possible for multiple page views. No, Matomo, the debug is actually designed for one single page view. I think because the reason for that, and we have been asked that question a few times before, actually, it's because the if you check the variables and let's see if I can show that. Yeah, so if you check the variables, data layer, and etc., so it makes a lot more sense that you have that in only one page. If you would mix different pages, then it could be quite difficult uh, to go and analyze different pages. It would be a little bit harder than than just a single page.
Okay, thank you, Ralph. So now, of course, don't leave us. There are so many questions waiting in the chat. For any answers that Ralph is providing, if the answers are not clear, feel free to reuse the chat to ask for more clarification. We have another question from Ronan this time. What are the skills required to work at support at Matomo?
Okay, so I'm pleased to hear that. We're hiring. um, it, you really need to have a developer mindset at least. Knowing JavaScript would be very handy. and knowing some other technologies like SQL, um, I would say WordPress slash HTML slash CSS is the basics that we require really to understand how a website is built, right? So that's how we can troubleshoot it. Knowing Java is it's quite important, I would say, but it's not 100%. I think that you can learn as you troubleshoot things, and we do have lots of developers in-house that can actually help with that. But definitely need to have some technical background to work as a technical support.
Okay. Next question is from Elmadi Shaker. Could you explain how user tracking works? And either we can track conversion made days after the first visit as we use multiple ad channels.
Can you just repeat the last bit? As we use?
Yeah, so I repeat the full question because this question I think is mostly about attribution. So the first part of the question is, could you explain how user tracking works? So I have the feeling that when the question is asked, when they say how user tracking works, means at the individual level. So could you explain how user tracking works? And either we can track conversion made days after the first visit as we use multiple ad channels. I think the question is attribution linked, but you are the expert.
Okay. Yeah, it's a bit subjective, some of the answers. Okay, so uh, uh, so I would say it's hang on, let's see if I can open this up. Matomo attribution, the default is the last non-direct um, um, interaction, right? So that's the how we set. Um, I would really just need to have a little bit more like a specific details what you would like to know exactly. But what we recommend is just to go and check this multi-channel conversion attribution FAQ and to understand a little bit more of some of the details. Because I would say, unfortunately, I feel like the question is very wide and there is no specific question that I need to actually uh, answer now like how what is the journey of a visitor in terms of attribution. So as I said, like it's the last non-directed channel basically, but you can change that the in attribution. You can actually see different views as well, but I'm sorry, but it's a bit too wide sort of question that I would rather if you could just email us support, and if you've got a specific question about a some of your users or some of the actual examples that you do have in your website, and it will be able to check out for you.
Okay, so here, if we go back to the question, could you explain how user tracking works? And either we can track conversion made days after the visit as we use multiple ad channel. I think that in all cases, the answer to provide is yes, because the data has been collected. But I think after that, what Ralph need is really to know, let's say I think the answer is yes, but the big question that we have, I think here, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ralph, is how could we visualize after that? I mean, what is the type of report that here the person is asking would like to get? Am I correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So for this, what is the way actually to contact the support? How can, for example, here, so his name is Elmadi Shaker. How can he contact you, Ralph, in order to get the answer specifically for this question?
Yeah. For we do have different emails for different types of Matomo. If you're referring to the Matomo Cloud, it will be support@matomo.cloud email.
Mm-hmm.
And if this is for on-premise accounts, which is not paid, then it will be for the hello@matomo.org email.
Okay, so support@matomo.cloud and hello@matomo.org. So here, Elmedi Shaker, the better is really to, in the email, just explain to Ralph what is the ended result that you want to have, because at the end of the day, it's about data visualization. So is it a table report? Is it a graph? What you have in the first column, in the second column? But I will say that we do have the data, so it's possible. But the big question afterward is how to visualize it. The next question as well from Elmadi Shaker. We noticed that even after deleting all cookies, sessions are still logged as returning visitors. That's a great question because I noticed that as well. Why is that? How is it possible that when we delete cookies, sessions are still logged as returning visitors?
I believe it's just because of the fingerprinting, because Matomo doesn't just necessarily detect. Matomo goes first to the cookie, but secondly, you would actually just go for fingerprinting. So the trying to determine the visitor by a series of information like the IP address, the browser. Trying to remember exchanges, I think, and it's supposed to fall. So from what I understand, and I had a question as well. I've seen that. Well, I think we discussed it before, Rona, that we've noticed that, and I believe I need to confirm that for you. But I believe that it's Matomo. Even though search for the cookie first, it still would try to do the fingerprints anyway. And so the information that Matomo has collected previously, with or without cookies, would still be kept, and then that can be used for fingerprinting. So if you delete the cookies, it still would possibly just be. I think that's why this is detecting the return visit. So what I would say as a test, delete the cookies and but not just that. Try to change other variables, for instance, the IP address, some of the browser extensions, etc., etc., and see if that it still remains the same.
Okay, thank you. Can you maybe precise to our audience what fingerprint is?
It's a way of detecting the user without the need for cookies.
Okay.
So it's obviously fingerprints is a lot less accurate than the cookies itself, because when you check the cookie, it's an information stored in your computer and has got a value. So that's it. It's a very precise way of identifying a user. Fingerprinting is just is a series of identifications that we Matomo that search for it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it will be exactly the same. For instance, IP can change, right? So majority of people have a dynamic IP instead of a static one, right? So and even the browser, for instance. So if I go visit a website with Chrome and then change with Firefox or um, Opera or whatever, so the fingerprints, I would say, will be confused after a while and likely to have issues to identifying the original user. Okay, are you happy?
Yes. So Elmadi Shaka is precising in the chat, Matomo use config ID instead of fingerprinting. It's written in the documentation. I think I can add a question mark here to the statement of Elmadi Shaka. Can you tell us what is the difference between config ID compared to fingerprinting? I'm not easy on you today, am I?
Yes, you're not very easy on me. I've actually need to investigate that, so I'm not 100% sure what is the difference. I would have thought that the thing of config ID is actually part of the fingerprinting.
Well, that's in all cases, I think either config or fingerprinting, both are IDs, in fact.
Exactly.
That's the thing. If there's no questions left, well, actually, I think I need to leave the floor to the next speaker, which is Benoit Weber. I would like to say thank you, Ralph, for this first participation of Matomo Camp. So you will come back this afternoon. And sorry for the confusion in terms of time, but you will be here and confirm that's the case at 2 p.m. This afternoon for how to use AI to fetch raw data with Python. Am I correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So thank you to all of you, and let's have a 4 minutes break before the next conference.